Okay, today we're going to learn the second half of chapter 14. We spoke last week that everybody is able, like we spoke what we're able to and what we can't. We all are able to control our thought, speech, and action. We are all able to be a Beinoni, but not everybody can reach the level of a tzaddik where you're going to be disgusted by the bad or by sins. Like that level of being disgusted by sins and not doing any bad and not being attracted to the bad, that's only for tzaddikim, and that we cannot reach. Okay. Today we're going to see further on that topic of how we could a little bit exercise and develop a disgust for the bad. So I'm going to start with a story. Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, you heard of him. He was known to be an advocate for the Jewish people. He was always advocating. And he was even an advocate for people that were sinning, for sinners. Oh. And what was he saying? He says, Hashem, if you would put all the holiness and all the Gan Eden in front of people's eyes, and the world's pleasures would be in a book on the shelf, that you don't see it, then you can tell everybody, you can complain to everybody why you're not doing Torah and mitzvot. But instead, Hashem, you put all the world's pleasures, all the physical fun stuff in front of people's eyes, and all the holiness is like hidden, all the Gan Eden, it's like all in a book, all hidden. And what's the wonder? Like, of course, everybody's going to be attracted to the bad. How can you complain to the people that they're not listening to you? Like you're giving them such temptations. Mm-hmm. And it's very true. The world is very, very tempting. And it's even more tempting today in 2022. If you look at back in the shtetl or back in Jewish history, Jews were like more together with each other, and they didn't see all the temptations of the world. They were like within themselves in their little shtetl, and they were fine. Today, even if you are in your shtetl, there's internet. I'm saying we're in the street, we're mixed with everybody, we see everything, everything is so exposed where we see everything. Everything is accessible, everything is seen. So how are we supposed to cope and manage in this world where everything is so out there, it's so in front of our eyes? And how are we meant to take care of ourselves and become immune to the world's pleasure? Like, is it possible? And like the temptations of the world are so powerful, and what can we do, and how can we do it? So we spoke already last week and also in the previous chapters, the previous classes, that we are able to hold back in action. Like we have the power to hold back because our mind rules over the heart. So we can kind of control our actions, but we're like holding in. We want all this good stuff, but we're able to hold it in. And so that's what is expected of a Beinoni. That's what's expected of us. But today we're going to see that it's not enough to just hold back from the bad, but we also need to try to not desire to get to a place where we're not really wanting all this stuff. Like we have to develop it slowly but surely. And so in a way we need to develop this and a little bit aspire to be a tzaddik to a certain extent. That's what we're going to see today. Like to a certain extent, we're not going to get rid of all the desires for the bad, but a little bit, we need to aspire a little bit towards that. So our class is going to start with don't be a Rasha. Where is the red line, which we should not cross? Then we're going to talk about how we should be a tzaddik, how we can take care of all this attractive stuff. And then we're going to see what is the power of habits. When we take habits, then we can do it. Like we're going to see how much we can do and the power of habits. So to understand how we need to approach the world's pleasures, we need to go back to something we saw in the first chapter of Tanya. The first chapter of Tanya mentioned an oath. Like before we were born, right before we were born, there was the angel that tapped on our lips, and we were told, what were we told? Be a tzaddik, don't be a Rasha, and even if the whole world tells you that you're a tzaddik, look at yourself like a Rasha. Does this sound familiar? We saw it already a few times. So this oath is going to give us two very important things in life. There's things about our ambitions, what we're aspiring to be, and also how we look at ourselves. So when we say be in your eyes like a Rasha, that talks about how we look at ourselves. Okay, and we spoke about it already in the previous chapter, that even if you're success, why do we have to look at ourselves like a Rasha? Because even if we're managing to do a lot of mitzvot, even we're like good Jews, we still have to be very aware and on alert of the Yetzer Hara, right? That's why we have to always look at ourselves at Rasha, because we still have a Yetzer Hara inside of us. We still have very strong desires. Don't think you're a tzaddik. Like in any area, don't think you mastered anything. Like, just be aware. And so that's how we should look at ourselves. But then it says, be a tzaddik and don't be a Rasha. That's going to be talking about how we need to, what ambitions we need to have. Where are we aspiring to be? Try to be a tzaddik, don't be a Rasha. When we have ambitions, that's the motor of what drives us. Because if we have a very high ambition, so we're motivated, we're going to try hard, we're going to work hard, we're going to put a lot of efforts. But if we're not excited about anything, we don't have an ambition, we're just going to keep it on a very low key. We're not going to try hard. We're not going to do anything. Like we can just stay where we're at. So an ambition is like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's a very important thing, because when we have an ambition, it gives us a motivation, okay, to achieve a certain goal. So what do you think is better, to have high ambitions or low ambitions? There's pluses and minuses in each, if you look at it.
Well, because if you have.
Can you please pass me a cup of water? Yeah. Trying to feel hot, yeah. Why is it good to have high ambitions?
It's like Rosh Arayot ולא זנב. Okay, when you say I'm going to climb 10 stairs, right? And then by the third step, you're tired. You cannot continue. Say, but 10, you look towards
exactly. You're going to try hard. When you have a high ambitions, you're going to try very, very hard. On the other hand, sometimes if you don't get to the 10th, one person was giving you an example of 10 steps. You want to reach 10 steps and you only reach the third and it's already hard and you're already tired. So on one hand, because you wanted to reach 10 steps, you're going to work hard to get there. On the other hand, if you don't get all the way to the 10, you're going to develop depression, like you're going to become depressed, like you're going to feel low about yourself because you didn't reach where you wanted to reach. As opposed to if you have a low expectation and you create a very low goal, like step 2, so it's very reachable, very like it's a realistic expectation, but you're not going to put any effort. You're going to always get it, and without any effort. So it's the same idea when we serve Hashem, all the Torah mitzvot. And that's what we're talking about today in the Tanya. Everybody has a different ambition of where they want to reach in a spiritual level. In Tanya, there's 3 general possibilities. You can be a tzaddik, you can be a Beinani, and you can be a Rasha. Where do you want to be over here? Like we have to decide what's going to be our ambition. So the tzaddik, we know he has no temptations in the world. He has no disgust to any of the bad stuff. And the love of Hashem fills him up completely. The Beinani, he likes the world's pleasures. He's attracted to it, but he's controlling himself in his actions. He lives according to Torah, like the way he acts is all according to Torah. The Rasha, he gives himself some room to sin and to sometimes not do what Hashem wants. So what ambitions do we have? Are we going to have an ambition? Where should we be? Should we aspire to be a tzaddik? Should we aspire to be a Beinani and that's good enough? Or just stay away from being a Rasha or like be a Rasha on a higher level? Like what's our level? So the solution is in this oath that we were given before we were born, that I mentioned earlier. Be a tzaddik and don't be a Rasha. And it's very interesting. It's, in a way, you're like, it's a double language. If you're going to be a tzaddik, of course you're not going to be a Rasha. Why do you have to say, also be a tzaddik and also don't be a Rasha? It's like repeating itself. But it's basically telling us a very important message. Why do you think, okay, let me ask you first. Why do you think to be a tzaddik and not be a Rasha is 2 separate things? What's different in that? Or is it the same thing?
Oh. Anybody wants to say? Okay.
Go ahead.
No, it just hit me that the way, if you are already in the negative, like if you're Russia, it's very hard to be a tzaddik. But if you want to be a tzaddik and you're not, it's like when you say.
It's easier to reach the tzaddik level if you're not a Rasha. Is that what you're saying?
What I want to say is, I never say somebody is sick. I say he's not well, because the road from being not well to well is shorter than from
Very
being
interesting.
sick to well.
Somebody say the road from being not well to well is shorter than the road from being sick to well. So it's better to be like somewhere in the middle than be far from the Rasha.
So that's why.
Okay, so here's what the Alter Rebbe is going to the author of the Tanya is going to tell us, that really there are two separate things. Be a tzaddik, don't be a Rasha. It's two different expressions. Be a tzaddik means that you should try to aspire to be like a tzaddik and be disgusted by the world's pleasures. You have to try and get there. Like, work on yourself to get there. Like, that's the highest. We need to have a very high ambition. And it's okay if you don't reach it fully, but try whenever you can to not have strong desires towards the world's pleasure. Try. And at the same time, he's telling us, don't be a Rasha. It means at the minimum is don't do sins. Like, don't be a Rasha. Okay, you don't have to be a tzaddik, but at least stay far away from being a Rasha. Like a Beinani is going to stay away from the bad. Like, that's where you should be. Like, definitely don't go in. Even if you don't reach the level of a tzaddik, at least don't be a Rasha. So it tells us that we need to have two ambitions over here in life. On one hand, there's the minimum ambition, like the low expectation is don't be a Rasha. There's this red line. Don't fall lower than this red line. Like, don't go in the Rasha zone. Okay, so that's the low ambition. Okay, it says be a Beinani. You're able to have full control. Don't compromise on different things. Okay, you're able to reach full self-control. Do whatever Hashem wants in every single situation. That you're able to do, and that's what you're expected to do. Do not go in the level or in the zone of being a Rasha. And then he's telling us, being a Beinani is very nice, but you need to have a very high ambition also to be a tzaddik. Along with having self-control and holding back from the bad, that's good, but that's not enough to just hold back, like live like in a holding back way, like a Beinani. That's not going to get you very far. Ideally, try to aspire to be like a tzaddik and be disgusted by the world's pleasure. Like, don't have those strong desires. Like, try and be a little bit like a tzaddik. And the difference between these two things, these two ambitions, is the one of don't be a Rasha is like a red line. It's like, over there you shouldn't go. But the ambition of being a tzaddik, it's like you do what you can. It's an extra. It's a plus. It's like very nice if you get a little bit of it. So you do what you can. You do your maximum. But it's okay if you didn't reach the level of a tzaddik. But to go in the level of a Rasha is a no-no. So you see the difference of how it's both expectations are. So we tell the person how we need to approach the world's pleasure. Look, you can't reach the disgust from pleasures, okay? So you're always attracted to them because you're a Beinani. So even if you don't manage to be a tzaddik, at least do the minimum. At least don't be a Rasha. At least stay away from the bad and hold back and behave like a Beinani, okay? So actually, very interesting. The Alter Rebbe wrote a second book. The book that we're learning now is called Sefer Shel Beinonim, the book of the Beinani. The Alter Rebbe wrote another book called Sefer Shel Tzadikim. You never heard of it. You know why? He wrote the Sefer Shel Tzadikim. Believe it or not, that book was burnt. It disappeared. It wasn't applicable to anyone. Okay, we have to be in the level of Beinani. We have to aspire to be a tzaddik. You're not expected to be there. You're expected to be a Beinani with an aspiration to be a tzaddik, but at least don't be a Rasha. That's the zone that's talking to us. Yes.
No, but when we learn, when we learn the sikhas of the Rebbe,
yeah,
the other, it brings you to a higher level.
100%. All this work it's all the work of the Beinani to go to a higher level. But you're not going to erase your Yetzer Hara. You're not going to erase your attraction to the world's pleasure. I know. So we are expected to stay a Beinani. Like, you're not expected to erase your Yetzer Hara or to be disgusted by all the Averot. Certain Averot are going to be more disgusting than others to you, but you can't do it all. Like, we're not going to reach the tzaddik. We learned that already. So we're going to look now in Tanya. We're going to see how the Alter Rebbe is going to show us this oath: be a tzaddik and don't be a Rasha. And he's going to say it's a double language. Why do you have to say it twice? And he says that the person doesn't have a lot of choice because he can't be a tzaddik. And he's not going to get to the level of being disgusted by the bad in reality. And that's why we give him an oath, to at least not be a Rasha and be a Beinoni. So look here. This is the second half of chapter 14, okay? So now we may understand the repetitious wording in the oath administered to every Jew before birth, be a tzaddik and be not a Rasha, as quoted from the Talmud in the opening words of the Tanya. At first glance, it seems puzzling. Once he's charged to be a tzaddik, implying clearly that he not be a Rasha. Why the need to adjure him again not to be a Rasha? He's asking a question, like there's a double language here. The answer is that inasmuch as not everyone is privileged to become a tzaddik, nor has a person the full advantages of choice in this matter of experiencing true delight in God and of actually and truly abhorring evil, each person is consequently adjured a second time. You shall at any rate not be a Rasha. With regards to this, not being a Rasha, the right of choice and freedom is extended to every man. That's for everybody. Like to be a tzaddik, not everybody can get there, but to not be a Rasha, that's like for everybody. To control the spirit of lust in his heart, we can control everything in our heart, all the desires, and to conquer his nature, so that he shall not be wicked for even one moment throughout his life. This applies both in the realm of turning away from evil, sur mera, refraining from transgression, and in that of doing good, performing all the positive mitzvot in which he's obligated, and especially the mitzvah of Torah study, which is specifically termed good in our sages. As our sages say, there is no good other than Torah. Meaning the study of Torah, which balances, is equal to all the other mitzvot combined. Okay, so that's where we have to aspire. Like at least be the Beinoni, stay away from the bad, and do good. Your actions should always be according to Hashem's will. Now, so we learned that it's not enough to, we don't want to just hold back from the bad, but we also need to make that we shouldn't have strong desires towards the world's pleasure. We need to aspire to be a tzaddik, right? The problem is that we have feelings and we are enjoying things in the world. Like the Alter Rebbe knows us very well. We are enjoying things in the world. We are attracted to things in the world. So how are we supposed to lower our desires towards the world's pleasure? How are we supposed to not be attracted to them? How are we supposed to develop a disgust towards the world's pleasure? How do we do that? So the Alter Rebbe says that we can influence even the feelings. We are able to do something about those emotions that we have towards the world's pleasure, even if it's natural and it's an instinct that we have. And it's giving us two tools. Very, very nice. Like it's very clear, very practical. Two tools how we can influence our desires inside our heart, how we can influence the way we look at the world's pleasures. So the first one is going to be the positive way, and the second one will be the negative way, like from both sides. First one is that we need to reinforce positive experiences in the holiness. So we learned last week that there's the opposites. There's enjoyment is the opposite of disgust. So if you want to be disgusted by something, you need to enjoy the opposite of it. The more you enjoy the opposite of it, so we learned the example we gave last week, I'm saying it because I don't think you were here, is that if you like, if somebody is very, very, very clean, and they like everything tidy and neat, like in an extreme way, they enjoy cleanness. If they see dirt, it's going to disgust them, it's going to bother them, right? Because the more you enjoy clean, the more you're disgusted by the dirt. But now, if somebody doesn't get so affected by dirt, it's because he's not a very high level of enjoying cleanness. He doesn't mind. He likes regular clean, but so it doesn't disgust him if something is dirty. So you need to basically, in order to be disgusted by something, you need to enjoy the opposite in a very strong way. So what do we have to do here? The same thing with holy things. If you want to be disgusted by the world, you need to create enjoyment for Hashem. Enjoyment in mitzvot. The more you enjoy Hashem and Torah and mitzvot, the more you're going to be disgusted by the things that are not in line with the Torah. Make sense? Mm-hmm. We explained that last week already. So what do we need to do? We need to think, like, imagine the Torah and mitzvot are going to be done with, like, a lot of people think that Torah and mitzvot is like a chore. Like you do it with a sour face. You just need to get it done. Like you just need to get through, like, and it doesn't come with happiness, it doesn't come with enjoyment. You just do it because you have to. But Chassidut tells us something very different. It tells us that you must, like when you do mitzvot, it needs to come with joy, with enjoyment, and that's how we serve Hashem. We need to serve Hashem from a happy place. And the more you develop serving Hashem in a happy place, the more you're going to develop disgust towards things that are not Hashem's style. So this is not something that comes by itself. You need to invest in this. You need to think about it. I'll give you a few examples. Honoring the enjoying Shabbat. So instead of looking at Shabbat as like a bunch of no-nos, don't do that, don't do that, I can't wait for the 25 hours to be over so I can look at my phone, etc. Make a beautiful Shabbat experience, a beautiful table, beautiful dishes, like a nice experience, invite guests, do family time, enjoy like a nice piece of Torah, like you learn some Torah that you enjoy, like you read like a nice book that you like whatever, of course, in a spiritual way. And when you have a positive experience about Shabbat, you're going to be looking forward to the next Shabbat. But if you do it in the negative, like if you're saying, I need to just get through it, I need to just hold back, like you're not going to like the Shabbat, and you're not going to be disgusted by things that are not allowed on Shabbat. But the more you enjoy Shabbat, the more the other things are like an easy no and an easy disgust of like, of course I'm not going to drive on Shabbat, like how can I, but that's only if you actually enjoy the Shabbat. So you need to enjoy in order to be discussed about it. Another example is enjoying studying Torah. Sages tell us that when a person should always learn something that he enjoys. So you're all here enjoying Tanya. So a person needs to learn something that he's enjoying. Like you need to get into it. And so you need to find, when you're learning Torah, you need to find a subject that you enjoy. Like enjoying learning is a very big, very important thing. Like, and the more you enjoy learning Torah, the more you're not going to be interested in learning something else because you enjoy so much the truth of the Torah. You enjoy so much the life of the Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, that you're like, I don't need to read the scientists, from 300 years ago. You want to read, so that's how we develop it. And one more example I'll give you, so hopefully you get the idea of how we develop this. The joy of doing a mitzvah. Okay, any mitzvah needs to be done with joy. Okay, and we have opportunities to do a mitzvah with joy, like dance, sing, like when we have a new Torah celebration, it's done with such happiness. Simchat Torah, it's done with excitement. Purim is done with excitement. And when you enjoy so much these holy events and and it's done in a very happy way, then you're not going to need to look for joy in other places. If you enjoy Purim so much, you don't need Halloween. Whatever, just like an example. So, but that's how it is. Like my kids are not missing out on Halloween. They're just like, they're looking forward to Purim. You understand?
But it's going to an environment.
They're in that environment, but we need to create that environment. That's my point. She's saying my kids have that environment, but
they drive like for the some street.
Yeah.
Christmas light.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Yes, it's not. Why we don't have it? We have a conference. Or maybe I want to be for Christmas and not do.
Every day. She says her daughter liked the Christmas lights. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, it's our, I mean, we have to actively, no, but it tells you that it's our job to actively create enjoyment in positive things. So you don't need the other things and you're not interested in the other things. That's the first tool that the Alter Rebbe is giving us in order to create this gust towards and to become like a tzaddik a little bit. Okay. So, we need to take Torah and mitzvot and make it a positive and enjoyable experience. That's number one. So this is the positive side. Now, like that's to create positive experiences in holiness. Now, the second tool is going to deal with the negative side, to develop a direct disgust towards the world's pleasure. Okay, so for that, a person needs to I'll explain it in a second, to be exposed to the results, to the consequences of those pleasures. So a perfect example for this is a smoking addiction. Okay, how can you develop in a person that loves smoking a disgust towards smoking?
You tell the children in school that your parents will die if they smoke.
Right, you tell them the consequences.
That's
exactly.
in our case. And we got to keep going.
Right. So it says in a school, people said that in a school they taught the kids that if you smoke, you're gonna die. So when you tell the consequences to a person that's smoking, you show him pictures of what his lungs are gonna look like after a few years of smoking, and you tell him like you're actually killing your lungs, and this like you show him all the bad consequences of what's gonna happen, and even in the long term, even right now in the short term, you're enjoying the smoking, but look what you're creating. Then slowly you're creating the person to not want to smoke. Like you're creating a disgust towards smoking.
Those pictures, I don't smoke for a long time, but then nobody making pictures on the.
cigarettes. Yeah, now the back of
But it still
cigarettes is,
doesn't help. People still buying
it doesn't help with everybody, but I'm telling you, in theory, the idea of making
I-
someone, you have to really show him
They have
the
to
black
go to
lungs.
museum and see the lungs of actual smoker, and maybe that's more graphic.
That's the idea. You need to really show the person the consequences, and then they're going to create a disgust. So the same thing, also imagine with food. Same idea with food, for example. We like talking about food. If a person is naturally attracted to sweet food, okay, so you're enjoying in the moment, but how do you create a person to be disgusted by this? You tell him, you can show him, for example, I'm going to give you a very funny example. Show him how the food is created. You show him how the hot dogs are made, and then he's going to be disgusted by and not want to eat it. Some people actually, when they see how the cows are being shafted, like cut, then they don't want to eat meat.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you see the process, sometimes that's so disgusting, then you don't want to go there. So the same way, the Alter Rebbe tells us that we can develop a certain disgust toward the world's pleasure. Okay, we naturally run after all the attractions of the world. We run after money, we run after women, like we run after, like, I mean, the men run after women, or hopefully at least, and we run after food, and we're gonna sacrifice ourselves to get what we want. Like you want to achieve this, you want to get there, and if you don't get it, you're going to be depressed. Like it's like you really want to achieve and get all these things that the world has to offer. But one second. Why is it like so strong? Like, and you tell the person, look at the consequence. After running after this money, what's going to be at the end? Okay, like what's going to be the end consequence of all this that you're running so for your life to get? So, for example, you when somebody's eating, you tell them you're eating this sweet food and all that. What are you going to get at the end? You're going to get dirt in the bathroom. you can like convince the person that at the end there's going to be like nothing. At the end, it's all going to disintegrate. It's going to be nothing. And then the person is like, why am I eating this? Like there's no point in the end, right? Like you create like a certain disgust. The same is with all the other pleasures. In the end of all the other pleasures, there's nothing left. Everything gets spoiled. Everything in the end is turning into dust. Like there's nothing left from all the money you spent, from all the pleasures that you're having. It's not, if you think about it, if you contemplate on it and you think about it and you understand that all these desires of the world are not getting you anywhere. Actually, people that are looking for happiness and try to fill themselves with happiness with these things, it doesn't fill them up. They're always looking for more. Like if you think about it and you learn about it and you understand and you contemplate on this, you realize that you're not going to get anywhere. So even if you're not disgusted by the world's pleasure, okay, because we're born with a natural attraction and we enjoy all this, if we contemplate on what's going to happen in the end, on the consequence at the end, and we're going to see that at the end, all these things are going to become polluted and become nothing or whatever it is, we're going to slowly have less desires for those pleasures, okay? And at least we're not going to run so fast after all this world's pleasure. We're not going to want it so badly. We're going to, like, the more you think about it, it's like, what do I really want? Like, what am I running after? And you at least calm down this attraction that you have towards these pleasures, these physical pleasures in the world. I'm gonna share with you a story. So it's about, I want to share with you a story about having a positive experience in holiness, and that you also can, you can create and take away the positive experience in the unholy things. So there was a young Jew that was in touch with a non-Jew. Okay, like a boy started dating a non-Jewish girl, and he wanted to get married to her. And the parents were devastated. They were trying to scare him and tell him, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and nothing was working. And at the end, the last resort they had is that they sent him to this rabbi Admor from Lalov. And because they knew this rabbi, and they're like, maybe he's going to help with our son to not marry this Jewish person. And so the rabbi meets with the son, and they talk for a long time. But it happens to be that in the conversation they had, the rabbi did not mention the non-Jewish girlfriend. He talked about everything else and didn't talk about it. And when the boy came home, the parents wanted to know, no, how was it? What did he tell you to leave the non-Jewish girl? Like, what did he tell you? He's like, he didn't tell me anything about it. But I had a very nice conversation with him. I really enjoyed spending time with him. It was really, really nice. But and the parents were so upset. They're like, he connected with you. You had such a good time with him. Why didn't they tell you to just leave this non-Jewish girl? And they were really upset. And they went right back to the rabbi. They're like, why didn't you tell her anything about the Jewish girl? And the rabbi answered, if he likes me, he's not going to like her.
Yeah.
If he enjoys time with me as a Jew, with the rabbi, he's going to develop disgust towards this non-Jewish girl. And that's how it works. And it worked, actually. He actually left her and didn't marry her. So anyway, so let's look at this part that we just spoke about in the Tanya. We're going to see that the Alter Rebbe is going to tell us that it's not enough to want to be a Beinoni. We also, we shouldn't be a Rasha, but we also need to try to aspire to be a tzaddik. We have to try and sometimes take away this world, the desires towards the world's pleasure. How? By realizing that all this world's pleasure at the end, the consequence is that there's nothing left. And on the other hand, we also have to reinforce the positive experiences and happiness towards holy, towards Torah mitzvot. Okay, so here we are. Nevertheless, though, it has been said that not every person can loathe evil and attain the love of delights characteristic of a tzaddik. We are dealing here with a Beinoni. Yet, one must also set aside specific periods to seek for himself means of abhorring evil, to be disgusted by the bad, mo'es bera, okay, loathing worldly pleasure. For example, so it says how, the advice of our sages on overcoming a lust for women, let one reflect on their words. Woman is a vessel full of filth and the like. So when you tell a person that it's disgusting, whatever, then you can develop it. So too, one may learn to despise gluttony by reflecting that all dainties and delicacies similarly become vessels full of waste. You can tell them that all the delicious food in the end is like gets wasted in the bathroom. Likewise, with regard to all the pleasures of this world, the wise man foresees what becomes of them. They ultimately rot and become worms and refuse and garbage. Conversely, one should train himself to delight. So on one hand, we have to develop the disgust. On the other hand, one should train himself to delight and rejoice in God by reflecting to the best of his ability of the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof. Okay? It's clear? So those are the tools of how we can achieve and become a tzaddik. Now, the problem is, there's a problem now. We're asking us, the Alter Rebbe is telling us to become a tzaddik. It brings a problem because to be a Beinoni is very realistic. Okay, like, okay, you can control ourselves, we can hold back, we explain that. But to demand from us to be a tzaddik and to be disgusted by the world's pleasure, it sounds a little high, like a little too high level and not very realistic. Like even if we contemplate and we learn about how much the world's pleasures are nothing, and we try and develop happy, like positive experiences with holiness, still it says Yetzer Lev Adam Ra Minurav. Our Yetzer Hara there's something bad from the start. Like there's something inside us that wants these world's pleasures. Like we're attracted to the bad. So our natural base, like this nature instinct that we have, is going to pull us to the world's pleasure. Okay. And everything that we're going to try is really fake. Like if we're trying to be disgusted towards pleasure, it's not real because really, really inside we are attracted to the world's pleasure. So how are we going to become a tzaddik? And what's the point of becoming a tzaddik if we can't be there really? Like it's not true. It's like faking it. Like, is there a point? Like, is there a point to become a tzaddik if it's not real? Mm-hmm. So the Alter Rebbe gives us two answers. Number one, he says, try as much as you're capable of, according to your capabilities. Yes, you're human, okay? And yes, you can develop real disgust towards the world's pleasure, but at least try wherever you can, like to lower your desires toward them, like go to a little bit lower. Don't just get so excited about something that's delicious, like relax a little bit, you know, like everybody at their own level, a little bit. And whatever you manage, it's great. Okay. And whatever you can't manage, it's okay. Like you can't, like according to your capabilities. If you can't, you can't. And if you can, a little bit lower your desires, that's fine. So go according to your capabilities. And then Tanya says there's another way of doing this, like another guidance is that when we do a habit becomes nature. The more we do something, the more we become used to it, the more it becomes our nature. So besides from that, the fact that the person has the power to influence, we are able to influence the instant nature with habits. But you know, there's an expression that nurture becomes nature. Okay, the idea that the more you do something, the more it becomes the part of you. So when you're getting used to something specific, it becomes part of you, it becomes your nature. So if you're getting used to become disgusted by something in the world, by itself, it's going to become part of your nature. Okay, so the next time you're going to meet a certain temptation, it's going to disturb you less. Like you can say, this is not really for me. This is not really for me. Slowly, but surely you're going to develop that this is not the most interesting thing for me. This is like, it's not going to be attracting as much. You can basically lower the intensity of how much this attracts you. Okay, so we're going to see that's the last part of this chapter of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe says that not everyone can reach this level of a tzaddik. It's like that's too hard. That's like a fantasy. And then he's asking a question: why invest and be like a tzaddik if you can't? As he says, like we said, first do whatever you can. Okay, do whatever you can. And then he also says that a habit becomes nature. And he says, thirdly, maybe after you get used to being discussed by the bad, and you're also learning to be good, like to enjoy the good, and to enjoy Hashem. Hashem, in the end, if the more you enjoy Hashem and the more you're disgusted by the bad, the more you work on it, in the end, Hashem is going to help you being disgusted by the bad. How do you know? You learned this?
I've gone through it.
Okay, so yeah, because there's something that comes from the tzaddik's neshama that comes into us. Okay, and that is the oath that we get before we're born that says be a tzaddik. Hashem helps us that if we work towards that, towards creating disgust towards the world's pleasure, Hashem can help us do it. You'll see it in the words of the Tanya now. He may well know that he will not attain this degree of loathing evil and delighting in godliness with the fullest measure of truth, but will only imagine it, like it's only like a fantasy, okay? Nevertheless, he should do his part to uphold the oath administered to him to be a tzaddik. And God will do as he sees fit, whether to grant him the level of tzaddik or not. Furthermore, emulating the tzaddik in loathing evil and delighting in God produces another benefit for the Beinoni. Habit reigns supreme in all matters. It becomes second nature. Therefore, when one accustoms himself to loathe evil, he will begin to find it truly loathsome. Like if you loathe is the concept of disgust. Like that's the word I use. The more you're used to being disgusted by something bad, the more it's going to become part of you. It's going to actually be real. Okay, to some extent. And when he accustomed himself to rejoice in God through reflecting on his greatness, then on the principle that an arousal of man below brings a corresponding arousal above, like we do our part, and then Hashem will help us. Perhaps after all this effort of his, a spirit from above will descend upon him. That's where you see Hashem is helping us. And it will be granted him that the soul level of Ruach, originating in the soul of some tzaddik, will be impregnated in him so that he may serve God with true joy. It's going to become real. Thus it is written, rejoice, O tzaddikim in God. In this way, the oath charging him to be a tzaddik will be truly fulfilled. So that is reachable to all of us. We all are able to make an effort to get there, and then Hashem will help us. Now, very important is the end, because I'm going to make it very practical in my conclusion now. So first, what we learned today is that there's a double language in an oath, okay? There was be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. Because we're talking about two personalities and two ambitions. Be a tzaddik you need to try and be disgusted by the bad, okay, through thinking about it, okay, and through developing positive experiences in Torah mitzvot. Don't be a Rasha, meaning that even if you didn't manage to reach the level of a tzaddik, at least don't go in the level of a Rasha. Stay in a Beinoni. Okay, in other words, control yourself always. Okay, that's what's expected of us. Now, we're finishing this chapter 14 today, and we learned that we have two different ambitions. On one hand, we want to be a Beinoni. Okay, we need to hold back. Okay, hold back and behave properly. On the other hand, we're also required to be like a tzaddik. We're required a little bit more than that. Like, it's not enough to hold back, but we also need to be like a tzaddik and lower our desires toward the world's pleasure. So how is this connecting to us? Like, a lot of us are going to say, okay, listen, I'm really far from a tzaddik. That's why I'm telling this. I'm really far from a tzaddik. I'm barely a Beinoni. Like, this whole chapter is talking to loftier people than us. Like, where are we in the picture over here? Like, we're not in that level. So it's important that we understand that a tzaddik, a Beinoni, and a Rasha, those three levels, okay, those three personalities, it's not just separate personalities. Each one of us, we all have all of them in us. Okay, we all have moments of tzaddik, moments of Rasha, moments of Beinoni, and each moment is a new choice. Each event, each mitzvah, each scene, whatever, each moment is a new moment. And it's the idea, it's different ways of coping. Sometimes we're faced with a temptation and we're going to be a tzaddik. Sometimes we're going to be a Rasha, sometimes we're going to be a Beinoni. I'm going to give you 5 examples, or 5 non-examples, 5 ways of how we're going to look at a temptation in front of us. There's tzaddik v'tovlo, tzaddik v'ralo. So tzaddik v'tovlo, he has no yetzer hara, he has no temptations at all. Okay, he's completely disgusted by them. Okay, so we have moments like that. There are certain mitzvot. We all have certain mitzvot that come to us easy, and we're definitely not going to transgress those things. Like, certain things are like, there's no way we're going to do it, and it's easy, and we're at a level of a tzaddik towards certain mitzvot. We're at a level of a tzaddik v'tovlo towards certain mitzvot. Like, certain things, I'm sure you each have an example of something you're disgusted by completely, just like a tzaddik. Like, it's for sure you're not going to do it. For sure you're not going to transgress this avera. Like, let's say, the way you keep Yom Kippur, like I'm saying, I'm going to something easy, but there's the way you keep Pesach. Like, there's so many things that we do it, and we do it all the way, and we are like a tzaddik v'tovlo. Now, tzaddik v'ralo is when there is a little bit of disgust. Okay, like, you feel a certain something, but you overcome it very clearly, very easily. Like, inside, deep in your heart, you have a little attraction to it, but there's no way you're doing it. You're tzaddik v'ralo. So we all have certain things that we're not at the highest level. We're slightly disgusted by it, or slightly attracted to it. Okay, I was giving you examples of each one. Okay, so now you have the Beinoni. We all have Beinoni moments. The Beinoni moment is we have mitzvot that, like, there are mitzvot that we have no desire to do, okay, and we still do it. Like, we literally, like, some things we hold back, okay? It's very, very tempting, and we're holding back. Very, like, we really want to do not Hashem's will, but we're holding back and we're controlling ourselves. We all have those moments. That's the moment that we're working a lot on. Also, there's Rasha v'tovlo. Okay, so the difference between Rasha v'tovlo and Rasha v'ralo is when you do a sin and it bothers you, and then you do a sin and it doesn't bother you. There's no conscience. You don't care. It doesn't bother. So we all have sins that we fail. Let's say I'm saying, if I by mistake turn off a light on Shabbat, it's like, it bothers me. There's nothing I can do, but it bothers me. Now, okay, that's one example. But then you have the level of Rasha v'ralo, that you sin and it doesn't bother you at all. You're like, this is not for me. This is like, I can't, like, whatever, too bad. Like, okay, so each of us, we have all those moments. Each of us, we have all these levels within our lives, okay? So our job is to go a level up from each mitzvah that we're keeping, whichever level it is, go a level up, okay? So, so for example, things that we gave up and we don't do what Hashem wants, like a rasha, okay, we need to decide that we're going to hold back and behave like a Beinoni. You need to go to that level. But if it's something that you manage to hold back and you're so attracted to it, so for that, lower your attraction, lower, like exactly like we learned today, like create that you don't have so much desire towards it, like create more disgust towards it. Okay, so each of those levels, our job is to go one level up for each little item. Like we all have all those moments in our life. Sometimes we're a Rasha, sometimes we're Beinoni, sometimes we're a Tzaddik, Tzaddik B'Tovlo, Tzaddik B'Ralo. We have to take a level up. Okay, hope that's clear. So good luck. That's our work. It's like it's a lot of work. You have no rest. And next week we're going to learn chapter 15, and we're going to learn the value of our efforts. Okay, when we serve Hashem like a Beinoni, there's how much we can work on ourselves and how much Hashem values it.